Welcome back to Spin Cycle Podcast, everybody. I'm Caley Fritz.
I'm Kit Nicholson.
I'm Jonny Long. Hello.
Today on the show, the Tom Pidcock drama continues to unfurl. We make boredom a democracy, and Rigoberto Urán wants to play some soccer. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. I think we're going to start with something. We are going to exclusively reveal something that has been widely reported, which is really our MO here at Spin Cycle Podcast. So let's talk about Tom Pidcock. Let's talk about all the crazy stuff that's going on over at Ineos and with this particular rider and the drama that is happening inside that team and with Pidcock specifically. So the thing that I can exclusively reveal, but which again has been widely reported, so not so exclusive, is that we do know, we're very sure, for reasons that I wish I could explain, but I cannot, that Q365, a second-tier team, is quite far along in their, I guess, sort of approach or attempted acquisition of Tom Pidcock. In fact, I was told that they're expecting to sort of know by the end of this week whether this is going to be happening or not. Both sides seem to be, well, I guess all three sides seem to be pretty keen on it. So obviously Q365, pretty keen on it. Ineos, I think, keen to just get him out of there, which is also why he was not racing Lombardia over the weekend. We'll get to that in a second. And Pidcock himself seems to be quite interested in this project. My guess is because it would afford him a fair amount of leeway and freedom to choose his schedule and all sorts of things. Thoughts? Do we think this is a good move? Tom Pidcock, Ineos' highest paid rider, heading to a team that is currently in the second tier and probably won't even race the Tour de France next year?
I think he's going to get he's going to get freedom in the classics. He can do some 1 week stage races. I think every summer we have been the recipients of a lot of spin as to what sort of rider Tom Pidcock is going to be, and I'm not sure that any of us really know yet what he will do with the rest of his career. Obviously, he's great in races like Amstel Gold, and by that, and also the recent Italian classics. Obviously, not Il Lombardia, but he finished on the podium last week in the rain. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a Q36.5, Q36.5, whatever you wanted to call it. They do seem to be steadily building up a nice little package of riders who can do some big things in the smaller races, and maybe that's what Tom Pidcock needs, is a lot of wins in Point 1 and Pro Tour races to really kind of prove to himself and to everyone else, look, I am here, I can do this. He's going to be getting paid a decent chunk, I would imagine, or he'd have gone somewhere else. I can't imagine he has no other options. So yeah, I don't know. I think it would be good to see him get a free run at things. I'm not convinced that he's. Well, I don't think he's a Grand Tour racer. I think he gets bored more than anything else. He wants to be at the front. He doesn't want to sit back and just plod through, finish on the same time as Pog and Vingegaard. I don't think he wants that. He wants to be winning things, and maybe he'll get more of a chance to do that in the lower tier races.
Well, I think the main thing is that at Q36.5, they also need to if you've got a rider like Pidcock, just rebrand the team, call it something else. But at least there he'll be able to do what he wants. It's like Aaron Rodgers at the Jets, right? You go to a smaller team where you're the biggest star by far, and whatever you say goes. Whereas at Ineos, he's coming up against management, sort of structure.
Well, he's been acting like that at Ineos. Well, he's not.
But he is the highest paid rider, and they've paid him that money. And he's won stuff. He's won a lot more than anyone else on that team recently. Yeah. So you can kind of see where he's coming from. I think it's easy to paint him as tempestuous. I think that's because a lot of the time he is. But then if you are an elite athlete and there are things that are not being done to help you, or that you don't think help you, then there's friction there, and the Ineos structure and team is not what it once was. So I think it's probably best for all parties for a fresh start. And if he does, I mean, Q36.5, they could get a Tour de France wildcard maybe off the back of this. There's potential.
Not next year, they won't.
Possibly.
No?
Probably not
now
this
that
year.
Tudor has gone bonkers with their signings.
Oh, yeah, with the Alaphilippe.
I think probably a Vuelta invite is the most likely thing for them next year. So let's just talk a little bit about this team, though, because I think that this is probably a team that a lot of folks out there, you're hearing this, you maybe heard of Q36.5 as the clothing brand, which I think maybe the best way to think about them is sort of like an upstart Assos kind of thing, right? They're in the same part of the world, and they're very sort of performance oriented. And the key thing to know about Q36.5 is there is an individual behind that company, which last I checked, he owned about 30% of it, but maybe that could be higher at this point. The guy's name is Ivan Glassenberg. You guys heard of him?
It's it's Glencore, isn't it? Mining, minerals, sorts of things.
So this small team, this one that we don't talk about very much, the guy behind it, Ivan Glassenberg, worth somewhere between $10 and $11 billion, up in sort of Ratcliffe kind of area. So that's essentially why something like this could happen, right? Because Pidcock's going to get paid, what, 3, 4, 5 million euros a year, whatever that ends up being. And 3, 4, 5 million euros a year to Ivan Glassenberg is found behind the couch cushions kind of money, right?
It's also Doug Ryder's chance to get back into cycling.
Correct. So that's the other sort of angle on this, right? So Doug Ryder, some difficulties, but has been running teams for what, more than a decade now? 15 years
and MTN Quebecer and whatever they became, Dimension Data, and then the unfortunate run-in with crypto or whatever that was supposed to be. Which was the downfall. But that team, they were the first African team to race the Tour de France, and then the first, they got a lot of firsts, and they did huge things for sport in that part of the world. They were a team that were easy to like. Absolutely. And Glassenberg is South African. Lives in Switzerland now, but it was originally South African. In fact, I think early on was sort of mining money. Back in the day, he's self-made man kind of thing. So that's sort of the backstory here. We've got a not new entrant, but relatively new entrant to the sort of billionaire club of team owners. And so generally those sort of individuals are not keen to just have a team float around in the second tier, right? Like that's not really probably the end goal for this program. And so I think that, getting somebody like Pidcock is a big first step toward what they're headed towards. So like I would fully expect that they want to gun for a Tour de France invite. They probably want to make it into the World Tour with the next round, right? A sort of round of promotion relegation that we're going to go through. But even before then, I would guess that they're going to go for a Tour de France invite by 2026 or something like that. So if you're Tom Pidcock, okay, maybe you take a year off the tour this summer. Maybe he wanted to do that anyway. You do a little bit of mountain bike racing like you like to do anyway. You still get to get into most of the major spring classics. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the big question in my mind is, how is it going to be materially different from the relationship that started falling apart at Ineos? Because clearly Pidcock is tricky to work with. I think some of the folks at Ineos didn't help that. But if we've got another situation where one rider sees himself as above the entire team, how is that going to work?
That's the big question. To go back to the whole Lombardia thing on Friday, the best thing ever is always when news breaks at like the evening in Europe on Friday, and you're just like, great.
Why don't we tell this story, Jonny? Because this is actually like there's a bit of kind of inside baseball on how that reporting went down.
Tom Pidcock announces this on his Instagram that he's been deselected despite being very up for the race starting about a night's sleep later. Yeah. And that he was ready to go.
A week on from finishing on the podium behind Pogačar at Giro dell'Emilia. So he was in for a shout of doing something, at least a top 10.
Exactly. So he says that Ineos don't really release any sort of statement. The next morning before the start, the Ineos sports director, Zach Dempster, is sort of cornered by reporters. And
like you
do. And he's just like, I don't know, like management made their decision. These edicts just get passed down to me and I do as I'm told. Meanwhile, Pidcock and his like sort of camp also running sort of media channels, posting via his dog's Instagram account, being like, we've driven 12 hours across Europe to watch our dad race in Italy, and now we just have to go on holiday with him instead. What a shame, which is amazing. I don't know.
That's good stuff.
It's just good. It's just good internet stuff.
Yeah. That's actually how we're going to start announcing things here at Escape, is we're going to only use people's dog's Instagram account. Does your dog have an Instagram account?
Absolutely not, no. And I'm not his mother either.
Well, you're going to have to start one.
Yeah, it's like my imaginary dog could be like, unfortunately, Johnny's definitely feeling unwell today, so has to pull a sickie. He'll be right back to work as soon as possible. Anyway, so there's still nothing has come out, but meanwhile
no good information.
But we fell down the same rabbit hole we do every time of trying to find out information. when an Ineos story happens, because even these days, when we go to like Ineos for comment on things, they won't even give us a no comment these days. It's just like, we do not acknowledge your message, which is, I don't know, I quite like it as a press strategy.
The little blue chicks on WhatsApp acknowledge our message. But,
you know. Exactly. But then we started hearing from a couple of different places that Tom Pidcock had got fired from Ineos.
Yeah.
Like,
from two different sources.
From two different sources. And the reason I think we feel comfortable saying this is because Dan Benson tweeted the same thing. He's like, obviously a very good reporter. So he put that as the public
oracle.
realm. So he's the oracle, the whisperer. He's like that guy in Game of Thrones who just knows what's going on all the time. So then who's saying that he's got fired? Like, where is this, like crossed wires, or is someone out there just like sort of seeding this as part of a communication strategy? I don't think it's that deep, but it's just when you see these things and happening in real time, you're just like, could we not all just like have normal lives and just deal with things like
just
adults?
chill, take a breath?
Yeah. To be clear, this is like Friday at 10 p.m. your time or something like that. Like it was quite late, and normally you get information from one source and you're like, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to try to confirm it elsewhere. And then we sort of did. We heard it a second time. We were still sort of sketched out enough by the way that all this was coming to us that we didn't end up writing a story. I'm glad we didn't, because we would have been wrong, which would have been bad. But like normally you get it from two different sources. You can be relatively confident in that information. And obviously, like I said, we weren't for various reasons. But it is odd that it came to us that way. At all. Like you said, where did this come from? Was somebody just messing with the media? Which
the
is entirely
internet.
possible.
But that's been happening fairly. Like, it's not been that uncommon recently. Like, there's one person that I check stuff with, and I'm close enough to that doesn't matter to me. Like, just firing someone off on WhatsApp, and they reminded me that I was now 0 for 3 on the last 3 sort of rumors that I'd checked out. Which usually doesn't, like, not saying that I'm not plugged in like that, getting all this information, but there has been a lot of weird rumors, and I think it's just because of all the sort of tumult, I think, between like mergers and all these big stars and how the transfer market's working, is that there's a lot of insecurity and weird things happening.
Somebody suggested that Pidcock was withdrawn. I mean, because bless Ethan Hayter, he's a great rider, mostly on the track and on flat races, but he wasn't going to compete like Pidcock was at Il Lombardia. I didn't actually see him once during the race.
It's not right for him.
But it was a case. So the suggestion was that maybe there are negotiations ongoing, and Ineos have got somebody to sell. To put it crudely, they don't want to send him off with a broken femur. And risk which sounds a little bit. I mean, we know that you can recover from that, and it seems fairly sketchy. But I think it's. I don't know. I guess there are lots of ways that this seems weird. Also, the way that Ineos Grenadiers social media was, or at least the information from on the ground was that Ineos Grenadiers is bewildered by what's going on. It's like, dude, this is you doing it.
It's like the hot dog costume person where the car crashes through into the building. He's like, we got to find the guy who did this, and it's a hot dog car. Maybe that's more of a visual meme, but people might know. I think with Ineos, it's just, I think Ratcliffe's had a bit of a wild weekend because the sailing stuff, America's Cup, that's going poorly against the New Zealand team that's sponsored by Emirates. With Manchester United, he's like made Sir Alex Ferguson redundant from his like ambassadorship role.
I read that this morning.
So he was getting paid. Sir Alex Ferguson, their long-time manager, was getting paid like $2 million a year. Also, sorry to anyone who is like bored of all the Ineos sort of centric podcasting, but it is like the most interesting story of the year. At least
we are in off-season now, folks. It's not going to be riveting all the time.
Ratcliffe's just going around just sort of realizing like, oh, I am a billionaire. I own all this stuff. I can, I'm sick of Pidcock trying to just do like Olympic mountain bike races, which I don't want him to do really. I'd rather he'd focus on the Tour de France. I'm sick of paying $2 million a year for Sir Alex Ferguson to just come to Manchester United games. And meanwhile, the $100 million I'm spending on this boat thing, that's all turned up for nothing as well. So I think he's just, on a bit of an autumnal rager.
Which, frankly, is necessary. Like, it's clear that Ineos internally is a disaster.
Yeah,
right?
It's not happy.
Like,
yeah,
it's a mess. It's a mess, and you could blame that on Pidcock. I'm sure that the folks at the top of that organization probably would, but I think you could also do the opposite, right? Like, and to be honest, this isn't the only storyline running underneath the chaos at Ineos. So I would think that I would suggest that it is the opposite. That I think that, Pidcock is probably like, I am a very good bike racer and I don't have to deal with this. Didn't he literally say that over the summer, actually? I think he literally pretty much said that exact thing over the summer. Like, I'm just...
Was it something in the documentary? In the Unchained?
Yeah.
It was both, in the documentary, because I looked this up the other day, he was like, sometimes you just have to make your own decisions or like decide what you're doing, which he said when he was like 24. And it's just like, you know what, fair enough. Like,
well, he has been racing since he was, I don't know, 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
He's been on a pedestal for a long time as an individual.
I'm just always inclined
really
to back the riders in these situations because their careers are so short. They're often on the sharp end of decisions anyway. So
one tiny decision can make so much difference as well.
And I always it's always a struggle to actually empathize with an organization or like a multi-million-pound organization of like money that doesn't really matter and is like, a corrective number on a balance sheet. So I hope things turn out for Pidcock. I hope he figures out how to say Q36.5 or however it is, or that he can maybe suggest a new team name.
I think it might be too late for that.
Okay, that's a shame.
Yeah. Well, let's leave it there. Like I said, we can confirm that this process to get him over to Q36.5 is relatively far along. We would expect it to either happen or not happen this week. The one thing we can't confirm is that it'll definitely happen. We can just confirm that all 3 parties seem to be pretty interested in making it happen, and it's pretty far along. So we'll talk about it next week, I'm sure, with whatever update we've got.
What's going to have happened next week in the Ineos world? I reckon
might even be on team camp next week because they're all starting.
I think they could accidentally leave a rider in Guangxi. That's my prediction.
Oh yeah, okay, that would be that'd be another good story.
Or one of the Ineos riders is like, you know what, Nanning is lovely this time of year. I'm not dealing with all this stuff that's going on back home. I'm just going to chill out here.
Just DNS on stage 1, except that would have been this morning, so never mind.
Yeah.
That race, by the way, like just ridiculous.
Did you see the sprint, the bunch sprint? There were like 30 riders across the front of the race. Such a wide road. It was amazing.
They quite like those sprints, though, the riders. They're like, you know what, it's
actually probably
safe
quite
in some
safe.
ways.
Yeah.
It is safe.
I was watching Instagrams of riders headed that way, and it's like 38 hours of travel or something like that, and just looks like it looks like an end of season punishment.
But if you're an Aussie,
it
it's perfect because then you're halfway home. So that's how a lot of them treat it. So you get kind of half a free flight home.
Callum Scottson DNS this morning. So
and then what happens sometimes is because they've already got their flights booked and it's too expensive to repurchase. So like last year, I think it was Luke Plapp DNS'd stage 1 or 2. It could have been another Australian rider as well. And then just had to hang around in the hotels for the rest of the week, which is just like kind of an insane life to lead. I just remember walking around and being like, this is what you guys just do. And this is.
But they do get a lot of entertainment during the tour, during those races, don't they? I mean, at the team presentation, they were doing agility tests.
It is quite good. They put on the woman who runs it, a woman named Anne. She like holds the whole race together and puts on all this stuff, and I don't know how she does it. It's quite incredible. I didn't go this year. I went last year. I might return next year. I think I had to have a year off. I don't think you can double back Guangxi.
No, then you get Ron Burgundied.
Yeah, or you get put on a list or something.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Lombardia in a little more detail and Pogačar and that season that he's just had. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Guess who won Lombardia over the weekend?
Kit, what was your headline on your race report? Because that was great. I can't remember. I say it was great, but I can't remember exactly. So you
Caley just said it. I just wrote Il Lombardia report. Guess who?
That's great.
But I wish I'd said that'll do, Pog. That'll do.
I like that a lot.
That's
for readers of a certain
yes.
age
I was about to say. I was so proud of it. I told my sister who I live with. She's 20, and I'm 12 years older than her, and she was like,
Is that? I assumed it. Is it not Shrek when he says that would be donkey? That would do.
No, it's Babe.
It's what?
Youths. The youths.
Babe, the pig.
The pig.
Remember the movie with the pig? That'll do,
what's
pig.
The quote? Oh.
That'll
and then
do,
I think
pig,
Shrek stole it from Babe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Kit stole it from Shrek. So, it's like transitive
I stole
theory
it from Babe.
So what you're saying is originally it was actually a Bob Dylan song.
Might have been.
Okay.
Might have been. All right, let's talk about the weekend. So Lombardia, race of the falling leaves. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful race. Probably the most beautiful race of the whole season, just visually. Right? It's an amazing part of the world.
I think Strada Bianca would like to have a word, but okay.
Yeah, okay, maybe. It's
recency bias.
Yeah, a little bit of recency bias. I'm a big autumn fan. I'm a big fan of the changing colors, you know?
You're American. You love it.
Get that on your graphic.
The Americans always talk about
I'm a real
colours.
peeper of the leaves. Real peeper of the leaves. Yeah.
Is autumn better in America? Because you do all seem to love it. Is there something particular about American autumn?
Really rabid about the colour changing.
Yeah. So where I grew up in Vermont, there's lots of amazing colors because like maples turn red and all sorts of things. It's great. And now where I live, the aspens turn all kinds of crazy colors.
We just get
like
green,
bright yellow and
then
orange.
brown, then
just sludge.
Yeah.
Everything
grey.
just goes to sludge.
Yeah. This is what we're here to talk about. All right. Back to Lombardia. Yeah, this is the sort of thing.
This is what the commentators were talking about for 48 kilometers on Sunday.
Exactly. Great minds think alike, Kit. Yeah, if we were commentators for the last however many kilometers of Lombardia, that's exactly what we would have been talking about, because Tadej Pogačar, he just left. He's like, bye, and he left. And Remco, so like everybody else, I was sort of like, okay, yeah, you weren't going to follow him, so don't even bother. But Remco Evenepoel didn't even really try either, and was clearly like racing for second at that point. It was an odd race. It was a cool race in that like you love to see the world champ stripes winning at Lombardia. There's a long history of that, and it's always cool. He was unfortunately wearing white shorts, which I know some people are big fans of, but I am not. I just don't think it's particularly classy. It's sort of like Jersey Shore.
It's too Power Rangery.
Yeah,
I like that analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like give me some black shorts, white, world champ.
At least he didn't.
Kit.
Well, there was never a chance he was going to. But at least he didn't risk doing what Alaphilippe did in his first year in Rainbows.
What did he
celebrate your first race in the rainbow jersey, sprinting for victory. Celebrate too soon and get relegated.
Oh, was that Liège? Yep. Yeah.
No.
Was that Liège?
No.
What was it?
No. Oh, might have been Liège if it was. No, it was Lombardia. It was.
It was Lombardia.
It was 2019. So, yeah, and it was his first race in Rainbows. But anyway, he was wearing black shorts, but he did celebrate too soon and get relegated, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, that was a rough go of it. Kit, we don't like talking about boredom on this podcast.
And
however,
talking about boredom podcast.
Yeah. However, you did a poll. So this isn't us talking about boredom. This is democracy.
This is reporting. This is
reporting.
Journalism.
Leveraging the members.
Yes. So you did a poll. Describe the poll and the results of this poll.
Well, to some surprise, I think, in a way, because, when a race is fairly formulaic or, if it's a sprint, then you don't expect the comment section to go bananas. But it did on Saturday. And it was partly because people were arguing over whether it was boring, whether it was bad for the sport. So I decided I would actually try and get some numbers on this, because the comment section isn't necessarily the best gauge of what everyone's thinking. So I asked our dear members what they thought, well, how to finish a sentence Tadej Pogačar's dominance in 2024 is. And the options they had were super impressive and we're witnessing history, kind of dull, but I'm still impressed, suspicious,
Ooh,
deathly boring and potentially damaging. Well, it wasn't, I was just offering what was already offered up.
No, it's good. It's good stuff.
And then
what was the last one? Sorry?
The fourth was deathly boring and potentially damaging. And then I gave them a something else option as well.
Okay.
And so far there have been 100 responses. And 60 of them have gone for just super impressive and we're witnessing history, which I found was quite, I was expecting it to go that way, but I was surprised by the vast majority of it being that. Because, and then it's 32 said it was kind of dull, but I'm still impressed. It was only 4 said it was suspicious. Only 2 thought it was deathly boring. And 1 said something else, but didn't tell me what the something else was. So
that's my sort of respondee.
So this is on Discord. This is on the Escape Discord.
Yeah, on Sunday.
Yeah. So these are real connoisseurs of the sport.
Oh yeah, and the comments under this poll were fantastic.
These are really cream of the crop cycling fans. I would wager. I would say that the greatest cycling fans on earth, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Probably. Yeah,
and that's fair. So their perspective is going to be maybe slightly skewed by that. We might have elsewhere. If you ask Twitter or X, for example,
especially
you might get more.
X,
you might get more negativity.
Yeah,
I would think. Yeah, but
you'd get more bots for sure.
Definitely more bots.
See what the bots think.
My Twitter following has gone up by like 800 in the last year, and I don't think any of them are real people.
No.
Well, mine's gone down, which I think is a good gauge of the quality of my followers, because most of them are left.
The thing is, what do people actually want? Is always my question, because you have like it's unfair to call them lesser riders, but like let's say a less well-known rider who wins a race, and everyone's kind of like, yay, that's nice, but no one actually really cares, right? It doesn't turn the needle. Move the needle?
Move the needle.
Move the needle.
In the same way that either a big name winning the race, or I think what people want is this like one in whatever chance that it's like a huge face-off between the big stars, like dealing massive blows, like attacking multiple attacks, which just doesn't work, because then half the time the same people lambast them for wasting energy and stuff like that, or not timing it right to win. Because basically now what you're asking the top riders in the sport to do is both win in an impressive fashion that clearly marks them as the best, but also to do it in a way that sort of snatches victory from the jaws of defeat, or in some way, it's too much to demand of a sport.
Because we want jeopardy.
Well, and the thing is, if you had that every time, then that would become formulaic. So, but I mean, this is the thing, is that the one thing that's definitely good for the sport is people talking about whether things are bad for the sport, because it means more people are talking about it.
I think he's raced, so Pogačar raced 50, another of the great stats to come out of the weekend was that he'd raced 57 race days this year and taken 25 wins. Now that's not 25 race day wins, because some of those wins include general classifications, so that's 2 wins on one day in some instances. But if you consider that 42 of those race days are Grand Tour stages, he's raced very few of the events that even that we all like to watch. So there's one, I get the argument that it's potentially damaging for the sport, and to explain as briefly as possible, the idea that everyone will just turn off and just be less interested if Pogačar's just going to attack 50 kilometers from the finish. But maybe it'll rather like there's if a new bakery opens up in your area and every other bakery has to up their game.
Yes.
Everybody else is going to have to up their game to compete with Pogačar, but also maybe the lower level races will attract more big stars, so the level will come up in those races more. They'll attract more funding, and everything will come up, and the level will rise in its entirety. It's also just, it's been 1 year, so like we were saying earlier, there has been a recency bias. There's also the
he lost the Tour last year.
He lost the Tour last year, and the beginning of this year was,
and the year before.
It kicked off with the year before.
Yeah.
And most of his competition crashed incredibly hard early this season.
Yeah.
So it's and Van der Poel, who wouldn't have competed in many of the wins that Pogačar got, obviously he raced the Tour de France as a lead-out man, but otherwise he barely raced at all. And he won the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix with a massive solo as well. So it's not...
The only thing that's bad for the sport here is Jonas Vingegaard not racing any of these cool one days. That's the only thing that's bad for the sport.
I don't know if he'd actually be able to compete. Because he doesn't.
Like at Lombardia, I think he would compete just fine. Yeah. And I think that it
would mean that Pogačar would have to change his tactics, because the reason that Pogačar was able to go was that nobody wanted to, and maybe weren't able to match his both his acceleration and his endurance, because he accelerated like a missile out of a cannon, and then had the endurance to keep everyone at bay.
Cannonball out of a cannon?
Cannonball out of a cannon, missile, whatever.
Missile out of a missile launcher?
Missile launcher, yeah, but whatever. Okay.
Let's mix our military analogies. Let's do it.
I don't know. Yeah, it'll do.
I mean, Vingo has just had another kid, right? So he's probably got his hands full. Maybe the solution is that Pogačar needs to start having some offspring.
Having some sprogs.
So that the only thing he doesn't have to... Because, as a man who doesn't have any children and can basically do whatever they want all the time, life's pretty easy. And the same for Pogačar, is just much more talented, and so he has all day, all week to figure out where he's going to attack and to just relax, train, sleep, recover. He doesn't get asked to change a nappy or to explain why someone has to do their homework.
So, Jonny, you say that, but I think that what's interesting is that we've had lots of instances this year of new dads upping their game. Okay. So you had Victor Campenaerts at the Tour de France, who won a stage.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And then you've got Ben O'Connor, who skipped the Tour de France because he had a kid just before it. And so he'd always planned to skip the Tour de France. And then he had that amazing Vuelta and World Championship road race. And it's happened before that
Dad Watts.
Dad Watts, that new parents have upped their game. And so maybe Pogačar as a father would that be the end of cycling as we know it.
Okay, here's another question for Caley. We're getting a bit off topic now, but it's fine.
Yeah.
So in these first few months of Ben O'Connor being a father, is there that much he can actually do?
No.
So maybe if you've got Ben O'Connor stock, sell it now.
Yeah.
Because from next year he's going to start getting busy.
Yeah, toddler is way more difficult
for
dads. First 6 months, 8 months, not super helpful. I mean, you still get woken up at night a lot, stuff like that.
And you have to do other stuff, I guess.
All of the people we're talking about have enough money to like hire a night nurse, for example, which really changes the dynamic.
He says with no jealousy.
No jealousy whatsoever. I'm not even sure that counts as parenting, to be perfectly honest.
That's Victorian parenting.
Yeah. No, I'd say that was just nothing, absolutely nothing but jealousy.
I think this is a way that we could start supplementing our membership revenues by betting on pro riders based on when they've had children. So we know when to bet. Like immediately after birth, bet, because the relief of the child being born and the whole pregnancy thing's over. But there's not much they can do.
So Sepkus and Jonas Vingegaard timed it well for the off season, but are completely screwed because they're not going to get any benefit out of it.
Yeah, and Jonas Vingegaard's already got another child. But we'll come back to the members with this whole theory.
I actually can't imagine having children as a pro cyclist. Like it would be really like you're just gone all the time.
Yeah, it must be really tough.
Like I had a lot of travel this summer. I had like 2 months where I traveled almost like a pro cyclist would, and it was awful. Like it's I don't know, it's not something that gets talked about that much, but it'd be really, really difficult. It'd be easier if, families in Europe and whatever else, like that was not the case for me, but still. All right, so we have determined that Tadej Pogačar winning lots of things is not boring.
Yes.
It's people like Dynasty. They actually do. They pretend not to, but they do.
We're also talking about the subjective again, because and it's like whenever I mean everyone knows that I'm into movies. I always kind of give a wry smile when I see people saying no, you're wrong. It's like we are talking about an art form, and cycling is not necessarily an art form, but we are here for entertainment purposes.
I would say it is.
So people to say no, it is nonsense. It cannot possibly be interesting when somebody goes off, and it's like, well, yeah, but you can't argue with somebody else's opinion. So I think we've got to be nice to each other, and we've got to remember that actually there are a lot of people who are here for dominance because they support this. And somebody on Discord said something very poignant, very very well written. I think,
like I said,
I can't remember who. Yeah, exactly.
Top cycling fans.
There's a difference between excellence and dominance, and we're watching excellence. And when excellence has no competition, that's when it becomes dominant. And that's like we were saying about the lack of, his competitors. But even just the fact that his team is bloody brilliant. So it's
also true.
Tricky. Well, yeah. I mean, just to touch back on Il Lombardia again. There was a 23 rider breakaway that included Matej Mohoric, Damiano Caruso, Damon Arensman, who you wouldn't be unsurprised if he did well at Il Lombardia.
Yeah,
there were Ana Rubio. There were some fantastic riders in that breakaway, but UAE Team Emirates absolutely demolished them.
Well, and Visma were the team of 2023, and then have had a lot of poor fortune this year. I think they're only World Tour teams not finished top 10 in a monument.
Yeah.
So these things always shift, right? It all works in cycles. Like even like now, I think you can look back on 2023 and be like, that was kind of cool that Visma won all 3 Grand Tours. I enjoyed witnessing that. So but it's fun to have opinions. Should we talk about the other big race of the weekend, the one that I was personally much more invested in and happy to see spring up on my timeline? Tim de Klerk. He raced a horse and won. Have you guys seen this?
Yes, I sent it to you. But
oh, yes, you did. Sorry.
I saw the video.
I was more setting it up for the podcast kit.
I know.
So yeah, describe the scene here. We're in a small Belgian town.
I can tell you.
Right?
We're in a small Belgian town in the 1840s.
Yes, because when this got posted on our Slack, Ian popped up being like, I wrote about this a year ago. So of course you did, Ian. So it's a West Flandrian town of St. Aloys-Winkel, population 3,800. Definitely said that wrong, by the way. Where they have raced horses and buggies down the main street almost every year since 1857. Over the years, this has like developed into different races. So, and it's a whole like sort of village festival on the day, and you have different races where they put loads of sand through the streets so the horses don't hurt their hooves or whatever. I don't know. I don't know about horses, but like children run through with like hobby horses, and they have their race, and then you have other races between horse versus horse. But then, interestingly for us, there's a cyclist versus horse race. Previous competitors against the horse include Il Lombardia, farmer's son, winner of Tour de France yellow jersey stage, other things. The Line of Flanders, Johan Museeuw, he lost to the horse last year on a photo finish. And we've seen photo finishes at these small Belgian races when Ronan did his Kermesse. There's a chance that Johan Museeuw could have won that race. But this year, Tim de Klerk of Little Trek, the man who has won 0 professional races, the tractor himself, turns out he should have been racing animals all along, because he's the first rider in 10 years to beat the horse.
Wow.
The 400-meter race.
Can I make a pitch to my boss? Can we have our member summit in Flanders in October next year? So that we can go to this race.
Seems like the wrong time to go to Flanders.
It was to go see this race. This sounds like a more exciting.
I mean,
event.
we could maybe not do the whole summit there, but we could put together a special envoy.
Robbie McEwen also raced the horse and lost. It's amazing.
Are you familiar with skijoring?
Skijoring.
I'm gonna show you.
You're going to show us.
Really good on a podcast.
On this audio.
Yeah, but we have video now, so we can clip this up and show the people.
Yeah.
We have some video clips on YouTube if you haven't noticed so far.
I think I'm not that surprised that de Klerk beat the horse, because it's not a sprint, is it? Or is it a sprint?
Well, it was 400 meters, so it's basically a sprint.
Ignore me.
Yeah. What is this?
I was expecting to see skis. What was this word? Skijoring.
There's going to be skis.
Is
it if it's horses on skis, I'm going to lose my mind.
Jackson Hole, one of the funniest places.
Oh, wow. So it's like what's it called? Wakeboard. Yes. Ski. What's it called when you do that on?
All right, you guys need to. I want you to describe what you're seeing on the screen for the audio listeners right now.
A horse with a jockey, with a rider, towing a skier who is slaloming behind the horse. It's a flat slalom course. There are jumps too.
This is in Jackson Hole, but it also there's a big one in Steamboat. There's a big one in Silverton, which is near me.
Why is it called skijoring?
Ski-joring. I don't know. That's the extent of my skijoring.
I'm kind of upset that the horse isn't also wearing skis, but fine. So yeah, that was a fun thing that happened of the weekend.
That was Il Lombardia, folks.
The horse racing Tim de Klerk. What do you think? The question I have: where do you think is the limit of animal that a pro cyclist? So let's say Tadej Pogačar as the best cyclist in the world right now.
Yeah,
I don't think he'd beat the horse.
Which animal?
Over what length?
Okay, so let's keep some variables the same. So this is 400 meters.
Okay.
So because I think that's fair enough. Well, there's sand and there's also road. So it's just like 2 tracks of sand in the middle.
Yeah.
So where's the limit in the animal kingdom?
Currently I'm picturing, those illustrations you get in textbooks or posters of animals and their relative paces.
Yeah.
And I'm just picturing, fox, cow. No, not fox, cow.
I think I could take a cow.
And then
I think I can
Tim de
take a cow
Klerk
for sure.
After the horse, I'm enjoying the visual. But anyway, carry on.
There's a museum in China. I think it's in China where you can make sure that you can run faster than the panda.
Make sure that.
Really?
Can pandas run, or do they just roll?
It has like a 40-meter thing, and then they run like a panda on a screen behind you.
I reckon
at
they're sneaky fast.
They are sneaky fast. Bears are fast.
Yeah.
Bears will come get you.
The pandas fall over is good. The bears, you always see those trail videos, don't you, of people having to ride away from bears. They're quite good.
What's faster than a horse? A cheetah?
Good question, Kit. What is faster than a horse, apart from Tim de Klerk?
Well, so 400 meters is an interesting one because this really feels like it should be after dark. But after dark today, I think we're going to talk about Rigo playing soccer. Yep. So you're going to get a little after dark taste
it's the off-season,
in the light today. All right, so 400 meters, which means that acceleration is really key. And that's why I think getting off the line faster than a horse, I think actually would be quite difficult because horses are very powerful.
Yeah.
And so like a fox or a dog, like would you beat a dog over 400 meters?
Dogs are quite quick.
Very much depend on the dog.
Let's say standard dog, golden retriever.
Your dog, Kit.
My dog.
Kit, would Kit beat Kit's dog?
Yes, 100%.
No. He is. He is quick.
Not over 400 meters though. He's got teeny tiny legs.
I think your top speed would be faster than his top speed.
I took him out into the park this afternoon, and I was throwing balls at him. He's very sharing. He was letting other dogs catch his balls, and then he just lay down and watched them. He'd get distracted is the problem with Lockie. But anyway, no, he's very, very quick, and I'm not.
By next week's podcast, I need you to time. I need you to time your dog. We need to have at least some
over 400
semblance
meters
of a.
I can try and get him to run
speed.
the length of a rugby pitch. That's about the gauge that I can manage.
Yeah, like go to a rugby pitch, throw the ball to I don't know, from the 22 to the halfway line, and then see how long it takes him to get to the ball.
That wouldn't take very long at all. 22 to halfway, but yeah, we can manage that. I can try.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the off season, folks.
This is very much off season.
This podcast, particularly in the off season, becomes an inverted pyramid, right? Traditional inverted pyramid journalism, where you put the most important information at the top, and then you just sort of slowly work your way down to the things that are basically irrelevant. And that's where we are right now. We're at the pointy part of the upside down pyramid. That's where we're at.
Look, as a broad church, we take in all. We take in all information, which is maybe the opposite of our jobs. We have had some Strava submissions, which we talked about on last week's After Dark. If you missed this segment or the show, basically Strava now has an AI which describes go listen to it. It basically Strava now tells you what your ride was like. So it can say, oh, you're slower than usual because you're older, or it says you've gained weight, or just says weird things.
With the world's weirdest fortune cookie. About your bicycle ride.
Of it.
As one of our members said, yeah.
So we've had a few submissions in. I just tried to use another AI to describe a ride sent in by someone called JK. I've lost the note they sent in, but it was a ride in Berkeley, California, just outside Oakland. Big old ride, 127 kilometers, average speed 23 kilometers an hour, moving time 5.5 hours, 4,000 meters of elevation gain. But if you can see it there, it is a very wiggly ride. So our own AI, which is it's not A and it's not I would describe that as so wiggly that maybe... Are you dizzy? That would be my main question. Look how wiggly.
This is what you get here.
That's extremely wiggly.
Intelligence.
Yes. All right, we're going to head into After Dark. We're going to talk about Rigoberto Urán wants to be a professional football player, soccer player, and we'll also maybe do a couple more AIs. So if you're a member... join us over there. If you're not a member, head to escapecollective.com/member, sign up now, and we'll see you in After Dark.